Hi, it's Claire. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. Today we have a very special guest, Anita from the Retired Millennial. I am super excited to talk to her. She's got this great Instagram account and YouTube channel where she pretty much documents her journey to financial independence as well as her journey through flipping products through thrifting. If you're new here to Claire, welcome. This is my channel where I talk about pretty much anything that has to do with money. We're gonna dive right in and be sure to stay till the end where Anita will share her top 3 resources for getting good with money, managing money, and getting started. And be sure to hit the like button and hit subscribe. That really helps me out a lot. But without further ado, let's get into the interview. So today we've got Anita from the Retired Millennial, and we're super excited to have her on our channel. Anita, thank you so much for being here today.
Super exciting. Thanks for having me, Chloe.
So we'll just start off. I feel like your story is so interesting and so different from so many of the other people that I've interviewed on this channel. And can you just start off by telling us who you are, where you live in the world, and kind of what the Retired Millennial is?
So my name's Anita, as we've mentioned, also known as a Retired Millennial, which is a name that I use to document my journey to early retirement, both on Instagram and on YouTube. I live in the beautiful central coast of California, specifically like the Monterey Peninsula. Definitely like Google that if you've never been here before, and let me know if you come here. I'd love to give you some pointers. But yeah, so I am a first generation stock investor or like stock market investor, first generation American, first generation college grad, and a software engineer. So that's what I do full time here. I have a very like slow paced job in the government sector. So yeah, that's kind of who I am. The Retired Millennial, I guess, yeah, my mission is pretty basic. It's just to, document my journey. A lot of people ask me like if I'm retired already, and there's that saying that says you should like dress for the job that you want. It's kind of like that version, but for your handle. Like I say, get the Instagram handle that you want the life to resemble. It's a little bit of that.
Did you figure out your thrifting side the same time you decided to start your Retired Millennial, or is the thrifting side of things kind of something you've been doing for a long time and it just kind of came into the Retired Millennial?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I do some side hustles. One of them is thrifting, which I basically do. I call it flipping. So I will buy something usually at a thrift store, and then sell it for a bit higher price and make a profit. I started that just a few months ago, last August. I started the Retired Millennial last February. That actually came first. The Retired Millennial and just my revelation of early retirement was first.
So what made you want to start doing the thrifting side of things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the version that it is now was birthed out of just like, I guess, boredom and quarantine. But it was inspired by my boyfriend's dad. He has been thrifting for like 20 years now. So I actually started dabbling last December of, actually, I guess December 2019 is when I started kind of like dabbling a little bit. And it wasn't really until August of 2020 that I kind of made a little side business out of it, when my boyfriend and I did this like $0 to $1,000 challenge where we were racing to $1,000 net profit. His start was $1. He bought like a knee brace for $1 and sold it for $100. And we're like, wow, this is so crazy that you could just like, find like high profitable flips. Like, I wonder how many flips it'll take us to get to $1,000. And we kind of challenged each other. My starting point was with a $0 input. I sold a gift. I made sure that the gift giver would be okay with me selling it. So I sold it for like $15, nothing extravagant. And then just kind of kept that. And the result of that was in 51 days, I made $1,050.
That's awesome.
44 items. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So now it's just kind of built the trajectory and now it's like this exciting. I imagine that would be really addicting.
It really is. Yeah, it's really fun. Like I enjoy the process. It is definitely like more than a hobby. Like I have to treat it like a business to have consistent results.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's exciting too. It's kind of like my project. It's kind of an experiment, to be honest, because like it's gone through different phases, and the phase that it's at now is how can I get my $0 like input to grow to $1 million with less than 10 years of effort. And you know, it's definitely possible, and it's crazy like how simple the math is behind it. Um, so yeah, I'm hoping to get to enough money to where I can, like, you know, stop contributing and be able to coast to $1 million in 8 years with $1,000 of um, investments each month. So, you
Okay.
know, some months will be a little bit more, some will be a little bit less, but that's kind of like the average monthly contribution. So we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. And I love your videos. I've told you many times, I think that you have such a calming, soothing voice. It's very ASMR-y.
You're
And
not
I
the first person to say that.
it's so soothing. And I love the one where you did the little bit of tapping at the end. I was like, I love this. I could watch this all day.
I've been thinking about making some more like that just because there are certain ASMRs that I like, but I know there's a lot of people who really dislike it. So I'm
Oh.
trying to be very careful with my approach. I don't want to just like give it to everybody.
How did you get into personal finance? How did this even become something that you wanted to do or knew was even possible? I feel like so many people don't even think of retiring early as an option. And as you, especially a first generation everything, how did you fall into this?
That's a good question. So it definitely was not brought up at home. Like my dad never talked about investing, he talked about his retirement, but like never taught me about like, you know, how much money you need to even have to reach retirement, like nothing. Um, the I guess explicit money lesson that he would always say is to save money. And yeah, so he was like, you know, a very heavy saver. He was invested in real estate. So he kind of pushed that stuff on me. But a mentor of mine actually brought up investing to me when I was 18, which I'm not sure if that's really the like my point of entry into the personal finance community. Maybe so, but what I kind of consider my entry point into the personal finance community was last year, the beginning of 2020, when right before I found fire, I was going to grad school and I took a semester off and I decided to join a course, like a financial course in my area with the intention of really just kind of focusing in on the real estate module. I was getting ready to like buy real estate, like a primary residence. So I was really interested in that module. And I guess the takeaway from that experience was more like, you know, how to budget. I learned how to budget for the first time. I'd never thought about like tracking my expenses or setting limits on, you know, certain things that I never had before. So I would say it started then. So I learned how to budget in 2020. And then I had already been investing. But then when I did this retirement calculator, I stumbled upon this retirement calculator and it let me input like my age. And I was like, what? Like, it didn't just automatically say 65 and this is how much you have to retire, or
Yeah.
this is how much I have to contribute to retire 65. It let me input whatever age. So I was like, oh, like let's try like 55 and then 45. And then like I just kept changing the numbers and I was like, oh, I can retire like sooner than that if I increased my contributions. So then I found the number I needed to contribute. And I was like, okay, like, you know what? I want to document this process. I had no idea about the fire community. I was like, I'm just going to start blogging about this.
Mhm.
And I was like, the retired millennial sounds cool. So then I was like, I wonder if anybody else like has that name already. So I just Googled a retired millennial and I found an interview on this author. I forget his name, but he wrote the book Financial Freedom. Yeah, he retired at age 30 and there was a whole like article about him referencing the fire community. So I went down a rabbit hole and it's like, oh, there was like videos I was watching, this woman who's like a flight attendant, living very frugally, and it seemed very accessible, and like there was an established community around this concept of fire. It's like, oh, interesting. And I made my Instagram account right after that, and then was just kind of, I made my Instagram in like February, but I didn't post until like August, just because I was in student mode and I was learning so much from a lot of accounts. I was really surprised. I was just like resharing. I was active on stories, but never posted a thing.
That's
Yeah.
amazing too, because you have grown so much since just August.
Yeah, I know. There was in 1 week actually, like I got like 1,000 followers from, I think it was when I started doing reels, like
Yeah.
yeah, that really helped. Yeah, and then a lot of people were interested in like the flipping stuff, so that was exciting. But yeah, it's been fun, and it's been like a bigger commitment than I intended it to be. But yeah, so that I guess that's where I started.
What's your experience been with budgeting so far since you're pretty new at doing that?
Yeah, so I kind of took, so the financial course that I took, Financial Peace University, was through like Dave Ramsey's.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I don't really follow him anymore, and have personally canceled him
Yeah.
from his like,
I mean, you
yeah.
know how I feel about him.
Yeah, I'm not like a endorser of him. I think there's other financial voices who are a lot more current and encouraging and realistic. Yeah, at the time, like that's just kind of what I knew as my entry point. So one of the modules was on budgeting, and they suggested just to take 3 months to kind of sort things out. So I was like, hey, this is like a pretty slow approach. So the first month was me kind of just figuring out like all my expenses, like, hey, like what bills do I even have, and getting all the dates and amounts for that. The next month was kind of tracking my expenses, seeing where my money was going, and then the third month was actually me like setting a limit and trying to stick to it. And then so for that first year, I would do the $0 budget, where I would give every single dollar a job. I used like the Everyday Dollar app because it was part of the course. And then I feel like I got a little fatigued, to be honest. It was a little much. So I was like, I was trying to find like a kind of a different way of doing it. Then I heard of anti-budget, which is a little bit of, pay yourself first and then do the rest. So now I'm kind of like in between both, but I did realize from that, like how much money I was spending on groceries just for myself. I was pretty surprised. Like it was like $500 to $600.
Oh,
Like just
wow. A month?
yeah, a month. This was like back in 2020. So that was pretty crazy.
I feel like that's the biggest, like for a lot of people, I recommend when they get started is to just to track everything you spend, even if it's just in the beginning, specifically to have that moment where you realize like, oh no, I do have extra money. It's just going to these things and I want it to go to these things instead. It sounds like that was the moment for you where you're like, wait a second, I don't actually need to spend $500 a month on groceries.
Yeah, it's crazy because I just like switched where I shopped for like most of my food. Just kind of tried to take inventory of like what I have already. I mean, the kitchen's like the hardest thing for me. I don't think I'll ever be good at anything related to the kitchen. Food, like meals, like I could never do that. I'm so bad at food planning and like cooking. And if it wasn't for my boyfriend, I would be eating frozen food all the time. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to have him around to help with that. Yeah, I don't even notice the difference between now where I spend like 150, 200 a month to like when I was spending 500. I feel like I eat better now.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing though that you were able to get it down to 150. I wish I could get mine down to 150.
Yeah, it's just groceries. Like I don't factor in like eating out in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it sounds like your budgeting is going pretty good. So, what would you say over the years before you started this journey towards financial independence and retire early? What was your relationship kind of like over the years? And, what was it like in the house? Like you mentioned it a little bit before that you didn't really talk about it much other than, save more and you saw your dad doing the real estate investment properties. How was your relationship with money impacted over the years?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of my relationship was formed just from circumstances, and then there's a little bit of it that's just I think comes from my DNA. But the circumstance part is interesting because at age 12 my parents got divorced, and at age 13 I moved with my dad, and the divorce really kind of set them both back financially. I actually had to, as soon as I was able to get a job, I had to, because my dad was raising me just by himself since age 13. He didn't really have like extra money to give me on things. Like he was focused on paying off his property and just surviving. So I had to like start working early. So I always remember actually even like writing like my first money goal that I wrote down was just like to support myself. Like that was always has always been like my goal. It's just like kind of, survival driven. It was I'd never really had goals of thriving. It's kind of like, all right, just have enough to support yourself financially. And I always kind of prioritized lifestyle over like high income. And then I would say like the DNA part, like I guess there's kind of like two big, money philosophies. Like one is like more YOLO, you only live once, enjoy the day, whatever. And the other is like save everything. And I think naturally I'm more of a spender. Like I remember one time spending like $200 on like slippers, like indoor outdoor slippers. They were really cool, but like, I wouldn't make that now as like a financially literate person.
Yeah.
Um but I would say just like naturally, like I have never cared to like, let my money go. I That was basically its job, is just to be used. I never had a problem with it or any guilt associated with spending money. That's kind of like I would say just how my relationship has been, just kind of over the years. And I would say like now as a financially literate person, I'm more in the middle. Like I'm striving towards like financial sophistication. Like I don't want to feel guilty about, buying a, cruise ticket, or, having like this drink that costs maybe like $1 or something.
Right.
If it's yeah, if it's in the budget. I also don't want to like not think about my future, which I definitely do. Like I'm prioritizing that right now a lot. But yeah, I would say like financial literacy has definitely brought me closer to the middle.
So you've mentioned it a couple of times, kind of this lifestyle, like you're more interested in designing the lifestyle that you want rather than just focusing on the high income. And if I remember correctly, I think it was in Millennial Money Honey did a story on you, I believe. And you had talked about how you had given up really a higher paying position in order to take a lower paying position that was more friendly for the kind of life that you want. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that decision making process was like for you?
I studied computer science in college, kind of like accidentally. And I'm glad that I did ultimately, but I got an engineering degree, or computer science degree rather, went into software engineering, and software engineering jobs are very lucrative, as you know, especially with, in Silicon Valley. It's not too far away from here. So most people that I graduated with ended up there. I did take an internship there in the financial district. And I did have like a job offer, to return after graduation, which I ultimately decided against. And it wasn't like an easy decision, really. Like it was a lot of introspection that I had to do, a lot of like kind of like listening to the small voice, really. It was, based on, that introspection. I would say it was more kind of like intuitive and emotional, but I also did the math to make the decision. Like I listened to both sides, the emotion and the math. So the math was, the reason why I felt comfortable doing it was because like, after, cost of living and taxes and kind of like my take home pay, comparatively speaking, the delta, I forget exactly what the difference was. I just kind of saw it as like my cost, my price of like peace of mind, which
Mhm.
I like that I knew what that price was. And I actually, I was like, that's fine. I'm just gonna, this is kind of like, I definitely am gonna have enough. It's not like I'm gonna like struggle to make ends meet. I was still had enough to contribute 20% of my first paycheck in my lower paying job. So I still definitely had like enough money. But it was more of like blocking the noises, like the noise, the expectation of the, people that I'm going to school with, and maybe just like society in general, like what I should be doing with a computer science degree and all this stuff. So it was a lot of like staying true to who I am,
Mhm.
knowing that like what I do have is enough. This is before fire too, so I didn't really, yeah, couldn't even think about like speed to retirement, because I could, get a higher paying job and increase the speed to retirement. But even till this day, like I think I wouldn't compromise like the journey there. Yeah, just
Good.
to get there faster.
I think that's so awesome. And I think you're so good at that, out of the blocking out the noise and focusing on what you really want and what the retired life or what financially independent means to you. How do you think how do you think you got to be so good at doing that?
That's a good question. I never really thought about it. I guess I think advisors, like I always like reach out to people that are older and wiser than
Mhm.
me and ask them for advice. Mixed with like my inability to make decisions. I feel like I get analysis paralysis so much, but I do get out of my overthinking by like just collecting a lot of input from people. I think people have a term for this. They say like have a board of advisors or something like
Yeah.
that.
Board of directors.
Yeah, board of directors. Yeah. So I think it has to do with that. Just like taking input from multiple people. Like you know, I think the one career framework that I've always had is to like have a life so that when I have children, I can spend time with them. Like I don't have kids now. I will, I think, in the future, hopefully. So like I've always kind of had that like frame, that kind of like lens that I looked through. That's what one person told me. And, I can't really off the top of my head think of all the other data points that I have had over the years, but I think I've just been intentional of reaching out
Mhm.
to my board of directors.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So when you got started with learning how to money, you started with the financial university that Dave Ramsey does. Was there any other resources that you went to? Like, how did you first start besides that course, if there was anything else?
Honestly, I think Instagram, I kind of call it like Instagram Academy. I learned so much more there than I did in the course, to be
Yeah, I
honest.
love that. Instagram
The
Academy.
let me see, March, April, May, June, July, August, 6 months of just learning from other accounts. So like I made my money account and just followed other money accounts. So like I started with like the Budget Mom.
Mhm.
At the time, like I did follow like Dave Ramsey. And it was more of like, even at the time, I kind of just like his whole thing was just more of like debt mentality. Like, and then the Budget Mom, I kind of followed for, budgeting information. Even though I don't use her method, I still liked listening to her and her like I like her rants and stuff like that. Um, and then the Personal Finance Club.
Mhm.
I actually did take his course when before I started like investing my own money because my money has always been actively managed
Mhm.
through like a financial advisor, and it wasn't until his course that I started managing my own portfolio this year. So I think like that was like, and yeah, when I say Instagram Academy, it was like maybe the fire community, hashtag fire community. That's a good hashtag to follow. And yeah, I learned a lot from just different people. No one
Yeah.
person in particular. Yeah.
Awesome. So, looking forward, what are your main money goals, you would say?
Ooh, definitely. To hit lean financial independence. By age 35. So yeah, so I'm 29 and my goal is to hit lean financial independence by age 35 in 6 years. And my lean fire number is 600,000.
Awesome. So, what's your goals beyond that?
So traditional fire is 900,000. So I think that's probably like the FI goal. I also have the $1 million challenge that I'm kind of tracking in a vacuum for the flipping. So I would say those are like the biggest money goals, at least the ones that I'm kind of thinking of first. I would like to own a real estate property. I think that's kind of where things are going. I do have down payment in progress. So I timing for that one is just awkward at the moment, just because the market is like super crazy. I don't really want to pay over asking or be in a bidding war. I was already in a bidding war last year, and that wasn't fun. And I may as well just keep contributing to my down payment. And then my boyfriend and I might get married soon, so like I don't really want to push anything or like really get into like a big financial commitment before that. And, so it's kind of like I'm just taking it slow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even getting married is definitely a financial commitment too.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't have a wedding though, I don't think.
No.
So I don't really factor that like a big expense for that.
Yeah.
We've talked about getting like eloped. His parents actually got eloped, so it's not really a foreign thing. I think my dad would be okay with it too.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. That's so cute.
Yeah, either that or like a very small wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's how I would do it too. So, I only have two more questions for you. So, what advice would you give to somebody who is just starting out in the financial independence or really just thinks they want to start learning about money and they have no idea what to do?
Yeah. So one of the pieces of advice that I got when I was 17 was not to take it. Well, this is how it was said to me. I think it could be misinterpreted, but someone said, like, don't take advice from broke people. I think the word broke can be, potentially like judgmental or whatever. So maybe I would rephrase that to don't take advice from financially illiterate people,
Mhm.
at least money advice from them. I think that is very big, especially for the average person. Like most people in the country aren't financially literate, and chances are that the people you immediately know aren't either, like including family, and they're the loudest voices.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think like that has really helped me. Um, and yeah, so that's just kind of like I guess that maybe cautionary advice. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with that advice, and I also just agree with the idea of like don't take advice from people you don't want to be like. Like if they don't have the things that you want and the
Yeah.
goals and that they haven't done the things that you want to do, like don't take advice from them. Take it with a grain of salt. And that's I think something I had to learn in my early 20s too, because it used to be I would look for anybody to tell me what to do with my life or explain something to
Yeah.
me or give me their guidance, and it's like no, you have your board of directors of people who you want to be like or people who have your best interests in mind, and you know who you go to for certain things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think that that's a big one that I would say. Yeah, and don't get caught up on the hype. Don't invest in things that you do not understand. Is a really big one. I've definitely made some mistakes in my 20s surrounding that. So, like, if I could tell myself anything, it would be like, don't invest in something you don't understand.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So then what would you say your top three money resources are?
So the first one, I guess just like the umbrella resource would be Instagram. Like I've learned so much from there. Like earlier this month, I actually had to make a choice to like be more active on Instagram versus YouTube. And I went with Instagram, like even though there's no like way to get monetized on there,
Mhm.
because I personally like benefited like so much from there. So um the fire community, the hashtag fire community is something that I'm always inspired by and challenged by. And then YouTube as well. There's some I think my main like uh advice advice that I get on YouTube is from Millennial Money.
Mhm.
There's like the four guys on there, um, like Graham, Stefan, Andre, Meet Kevin, and Jeremy. I don't remember his last
Yeah.
name. I
Yeah,
think
I
you
love that.
listen to them too, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah, I really like their accounts. And then podcasts are cool too. I love listening to Paula Pant.
Mhm.
Um, and then Choose FI. I've listened to a few of their things as well.
Mhm.
I would say books as well. But what I end up doing with like books that are good is I just like go on YouTube and listen to like a summary
Yep.
of them. Yeah. So like I guess yeah, YouTube is great.
That's what's so funny about it. I feel like I get every day, I get people asking me for books that I recommend. And it's like, honestly, most of my education has come from YouTube. Like, and if it wasn't YouTube, it was blogs. And if it wasn't blogs, it was Instagram or something else. And it's like, there's so much free information out there that it's
Yeah.
like, get that free information. I think the hard part is making sure that the information you're getting is good information on the internet, but at the same time, there's a lot of ways to vet that anymore.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with you.
Cool. Well, that's really all I've got for you today. That's all fantastic. So let's tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh, sure. The Retired Millennial on YouTube, and then on Instagram, it's the.retired.millennial.
Awesome. And I'll leave links to all of that down below. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course.
All right, that was the Retired Millennial. So be sure to check out the links down in the bio. I've got links to her stuff. And then, of course, be sure to follow Chloe Bear on all the social media channels. It helps me out a lot. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe. It helps me out a lot. But besides that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.